So by the time the reader has reached 1 Samuel chapter 31, we've witnessed a horrific change in Saul's character. He's gone from an unknown Israelite from the dishonoured tribe of Benjamin to a man called and anointed by God to become Israel's first king, and a victorious king at that. He's quite successful in his first military exploits. But then we see him transformed into a disgraced, tormented, jealous king. Saul's character has really been drawn out for us throughout the text. So in 1 Samuel 13, we see Saul motivated by fear to take responsibility that is not his to take. He offers sacrifices to God against the word of God, a crime for which he's told that his sons will not rule after him. He will be like one of the judges before him, a single leader rather than a dynasty founder. We then see Saul making unwise, rash military decisions and largely being saved by his son Jonathan, and I'm sure several of his military commanders as well. In 1 Samuel 15, we're told of a time when God gave direct instructions to Saul to bring judgment on the Amalekites, in the same way that Joshua had brought judgment on Jericho. Not only does Saul not follow this order of God, but he builds a monument to himself, just like the ones Israel had been commanded to tear down. Most disturbingly, in all of these cases of offense against God, rather than accept the accusations against him as true and ask for forgiveness, he gives excuses and justifications for his actions. He explains rather than repents to the prophet of God, Samuel, who, let's not forget, once acted as the judge of Israel. It would have been a really good idea to listen to a man like this, a proven prophet of God. Think about the arrogance involved in dismissing the messages that Samuel gives. Now, of course, then comes what Saul is probably most famous for, his jealousy of David, God's anointed, crowned prince of Israel, the man who will become Jerusalem's dynasty founder. Saul proves himself an enemy of David by his repeated attempts to kill him, even though Saul has moments of realization and clarity when he recognizes that what he's doing in trying to kill David is evil. He regularly gets swept back up in his envy, overpowered by his own sinfulness, and the cycle begins again. So let's think then about this idea. Just like Israel in the time of the judges, Saul was called to be a man of God, and he starts out well. Just like Israel, Saul ignores the commands of God and goes his own way. Just like Israel, Saul's life goes in cycles. He becomes oppressed, Israel by outside enemies and armies, Saul by a tormenting spirit. The king that Israel asked for ends up being the perfect representation of them. When we keep thinking like this, we realize Saul perfectly caps off the time period of the judges. Not only does he live like Israel in this time period, he dies like a judge. Though he isn't faithful to God, he still manages to defeat the enemy of Israel with his final breath, much like the judge Samson. Only the enemy Saul is defeating for Israel is himself. I believe the author of 1 Samuel draws this out for us by the details of Saul's death that he chooses to include. So Saul kills himself by falling on his sword, and then the Philistines find him dead and cut off his head, just as David had cut off the head of the Philistines' great warrior Goliath. They take Saul's armor and display it in their pagan temple, as David had given Goliath's sword to the tent tabernacle. By deliberately disobeying the word of God, Saul has become the enemy of Israel, just like Goliath was. As the transition between judges and kings, this first king of Israel dies like the sinful judge Samson, defeating the enemy of Israel, but ingloriously. The message to Israel seems clear. When you ignore the commands of God, you become the enemy of God. And unfortunately, Saul would not be the only king of Israel to learn this the hard way. Now, this is just a quick overview of Saul's death and life and part of what he did, but if you want to go even deeper, then I encourage you to head on over to our website, because I did a 6-part Bible study called Understanding Saul, where I really dig deep into the text of 1 Samuel, because there's some really awesome things in there.
That is excellent, Corie. And I would just say that whoever it is who is the author of Samuel, okay, we have suspects that, maybe it's this guy, maybe it's that guy, but whoever it is, I'm sure they would be thrilled today that somebody's paying attention to what they wrote, because that's very, very important.
Thank you so much for watching. We want to keep producing high-quality biblical content, but we can't do it without your support. If you feel called to support us, please click the link in the description under Donate. Your support really means a lot to us.